Good afternoon. Thank you for joining us here today, and thank you for those who have tuned in online across the state of Minnesota. I'm Bruce Gordon with the Minnesota Department of Public Safety. In just a moment, you'll be hearing from Colonel Matt Langer, the Chief of the State Patrol. The State Patrol is investigating a fatal crash that took the life of a 22-year-old woman from Hudson, Wisconsin. Distractions were suspected of causing that crash and that death. The 20-year-old driver, also from Hudson, is cooperating with investigators and authorities and indicated that he may have been distracted behind the wheel. In the last 10 days, 5 people have died and lost their lives on Minnesota roads. It is a very disturbing trend. Colonel Matt Langer to talk about it.
Well, thanks, Bruce. Indeed, there's a terrible reason that brings this news conference before us today. Last night was the 50th traffic fatality to occur in 2016 on Minnesota's roads, surpassing last year's deaths at this same point in time by 19. The fatal crash last night, like all the others, did not need to happen, and the 22-year-old woman should be alive today. Our preliminary investigation into this fatal crash indicates that the driver who lost control was possibly distracted by several items within the vehicle at the time of the crash. These distractions are under investigation by state troopers, and a thorough analysis will be conducted to determine all the factors that were involved in this crash, including exactly why it happened. For the integrity of the investigation, I will not be able to get into detail at this point on those specific distractions. However, rest assured that witnesses are helping with us and the driver is cooperating. These crashes are incredibly violent and horrific. Families are torn apart each time someone gets killed in a traffic crash. So far this year, traffic deaths have increased 61% over the same time period last year. That's unacceptable. We know the decisions drivers make result in lives being saved or lives being lost. Our request is very simple. Drive the speed limit, wear your seatbelt, plan for a sober ride, and always pay attention. If you cannot make those 4 simple commitments, then you are part of the problem that's causing innocent people to be killed on our roadways each and every day. Every person has the right to drive behind the wheel and be assured that they can get home safely. If everyone makes that commitment, Minnesota will be a better place and far fewer people will be killed on our roads. Your number one priority when you get behind the wheel is focusing on the road, not texting a friend, searching for phone numbers, looking for your favorite song, or messing around in the vehicle. Please be part of the solution in our state. We can do better than what we've seen this year, and with your help, we can get the traffic fatalities to drop. Any questions?
What kind of penalties could he face?
That's a great question. What kind of penalties could the driver face? It depends on what we actually come up with the investigation. So, of course, it can range from simple petty misdemeanor to misdemeanor violations all the way up to felony level violations, depending on what we uncover through the investigation.
And Colonel, is that true? Was the woman who died, she was just sitting idle, right?
Right. Yeah, the preliminary investigation is she was likely stopped waiting to make a turn when she was violently struck by the other vehicle. So this is one of those cases that is just a very tragic reminder of how quickly lives can be ended on our roads just by terrible decisions by other people behind the wheel.
There's been so much publicity about texting and driving. Can you at least give us some indication if that's something you're considering, or Facebook, or some sort of social media distraction?
In terms of distractions, we're looking at everything. And so the common thread that we frequently look for is texting and, of course, surfing the internet or messing around with GPS devices or other things related to our handheld devices. But it's also important to remember that distractions can include a whole lot of things that have nothing to do with technology. But we're looking at everything, and the state troopers that are involved in this case will leave no stone uncovered until they find out exactly what may have contributed to that other vehicle losing control.
Did the driver admit to being on their phone?
Well, he's cooperating with us right now, but we're less than 24 hours into the investigation, so I don't want to get into details about what he may or may not have said.
And he is not in custody or under arrest or anything at this point, or he is?
Not at this point.
The scene just looked horribly violent. The aftermath of it. I mean, were you out there by chance?
No, I wasn't out there at this one specifically, but you know, that's one thing that state troopers see all the time. These are incredibly violent collisions, and although we like to think that we go to them and we go to the next one and we keep going, these stick with troopers. They stick with the first responders and the fire personnel, the EMS responders and the hospital staff. These are tragedies. And then, like just last night, the 22-year-old woman that was killed, anyone involved with that investigation will remember that night for the rest of their career.
I had seen heard two different stories that his car went into a ditch and became airborne and sheared off the top of the other car, and then I heard no, it became airborne, but then just pushed the other car into a tree. Are you able to clarify that a little bit for us?
Again, we're only 24 hours into it, so I don't want to get into great detail, but the preliminary investigation suggests that the vehicle did go off the road and went up an embankment and sort of what we call vaulted, and may have struck the other vehicle while airborne or at least partially airborne.
How do we change the culture with the digital age, constant connection? I mean, saying it over and over and over and seeing these accidents over and over again is obviously not stopping people.
Yeah, it's, to be honest, it sort of feels like a never-ending nightmare because we always talk about distraction, and it's so simple. If people just paid attention, that's all we ask, just pay attention, amongst the other three simple things. But one of the frustrations for law enforcement and for those of us in the traffic safety business is that it's not rocket science to solve these problems. It's very simple. And whatever you're doing behind the wheel, think about it and pay attention. Just pay attention.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Can you guess what time frame you might have more information under, or is that?
Well, yeah, it can go faster or slower depending on the level of detail that's necessary with the investigation, but we typically don't have definitive answers for several weeks.
Thank you all.
Thank you.